Hello, my fellow randoms. Happy holidays and seasons greetings. My name is Kev Duffy, and welcome to this, our 41st episode of What's Your Random Podcast, where I discover and celebrate independent and individual creativity from the inception of an idea to the process and the practicalities of bringing that idea to life. This is actually my third or fourth take doing that little description to my own podcast here. It's been so long that it just did not flow. It took a while to get the gears and wheels moving again in my head and get back on the podcast track. I have been on the road much of December, traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast and back via van, and then up to New York for the Christmas holiday. I am also, let's consider it a public service or a podcast service announcement. I'm going to be a little bit less frequent with my posts this coming year for at least the first few months as I direct some of my creative energies to other projects, but that does not mean that the podcast is not going to take place. Just probably going to average something closer to one episode a month, and I already have one episode in the books, recorded and ready to go for January. Actually, two, including this one, as I record this on New Year's Eve. So you're going to be listening to this in the new year. Happy New Year 2022, just a few hours away. I hope that you have had the most creative year of your life in 2021 and have tremendous and exciting plans for 2022. Be sure to share those with us. And to help motivate you, I always have on really great, independent, creative guests who share their process, insights, experiences, stories about their own creative endeavors. And today, on this 41st episode, I get to welcome Leanne K. Ingino, LK Ingino, the leader of the Headless Gnomes, her production company and publishing company, which has released such titles as Fangs and Foul Play and the Orb Teller. And Fangs and Foul Play was successfully funded on Kickstarter November 30th, 2021. And Leanne has a lot of plans for the future, a lot of buns in the oven, and some that we can already feast on this holiday season. So be sure to check out Fangs and Foul Play. Leanne and I talked about her creative journey from being a writer as little as a elementary school kid to figuring out a path and a direction and a area in which she could channel those creative skills and that skill set. And we dove right into that and more. So without further ado, please enjoy this full episode, wide-ranging discussion with my guest, Leanne Ingino. Enjoy the random. Okay, well, I am back from a long, short, quick trip that took me out of commission for a while, but I'm bouncing right back into What's Your Random Podcast with my guest today, Leanne Ingino. And Leanne is the owner of Headless Gnomes. She has written and created Fangs and Foul Play, and congratulations, by the way, on your successfully funded Kickstarter. And you have a lot of other irons in the fire, including the Orb Teller and Haunting Haikus. So I am very excited to have you on to talk about all of the random in your world. So welcome.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was able to read the first zero issue and the first issue of Fangs and Foul Play. And I guess to start, it's a comic about cats. Are you a cat person or a dog person?
Both. I think I wanted cats first. My grandparents had dogs, and my parents were very allergic, so I didn't have cats or dogs in my immediate family growing up. Um, and so I would like dream of like adopting like 5 cats, which that happened later. But anyways, my mom's allergic, so we couldn't have any cats in the house, and I would just like be like crying and begging, like I need the kitties. I dreamed of the cats, and now I'm so sad that the cats are not actually in our house. So so they did come first, and I think when I in college I adopted a cat. So I had cats for many years before adopting a dog. But I love both. They're just it's hard to
Yeah.
pick. I couldn't think of like having just one of them, like just
Yeah.
either or.
Yeah.
Cats are
Yeah.
definitely easier though, like for travel.
Yeah. And so the Fang is the cat, the kind of main character, main
Mhm.
feline character of your story. And I wonder what the genesis of that character was, what the genesis of the story is. So if you want to give a short synopsis and then, yeah, dive into the
Yeah, sure.
origins of the story.
So Fangs and Foul Play is a comic about horror. I always trip over that word. Horror, justice, and an evil vampiric cat. And our main character is really Richard, the ex-colonel who he's running away from a war and he's trying to do the right thing. And then he runs into this vampiric cat who enthralls him, and now he has to do whatever the cat wants him to do. But of course, Fang steals the show. They I mean, he's not talking, but we can hear his thoughts. So for all intents and purposes, a talking cat, of course, is going to steal the show. But it is interesting because it's really very focused on our main protagonist and antagonist at the same time.
Yeah, and they're kind of in this weird symbiotic
Mhm.
partnership where uh, the cat takes over Richard, Fang takes over Richard, and then is commanding him. And at the same time, Richard is to some degree benefiting from the arrangement as well in terms of getting money from victims that he, I guess, sets up for Fang to eat. Yeah, so I'm wondering, where you got the original idea for this vampiric cat. Was it from your own cats? Did they inspire you in that way?
They did inspire me, but they weren't like the original spark for it. The original idea was just like one of those 2 a.m. thoughts where I was thinking of the cover for issue 1 was this kind of image that came to me, and I was like, all right, what's that about, And this could be a cool comic, as opposed to sometimes when I'm having a thought, I'm like, okay, this is a poem, this is a short story, this is I don't know what this is thing, it's something, who knows what, to be determined. Um, but it actually, my first thought was that it could be an animation. I don't think I have it in me to write that in an episodic way. Um, it feels like a lot of work. Not that comics aren't, but I couldn't think of a sustaining a show, certainly not on my own. And I mean, a lot of TV shows have multiple writers too, so that's more common than one person doing a whole series. So from that, I was like, well, what about a comic? And it took me a while to figure out Richard. I'm still kind of figuring out Richard a little bit. The more I write him, the more I get into his character. Fang is much easier for me. He comes more naturally because I do have cats and I'm around them, and I see their personalities every day.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess Richard escaped war and he's a conscientious objector to, is it a specific war? Or, I mean, I guess we could maybe,
No, it is set in a fantasy world. I didn't want to
okay.
have to do that much research.
For historical purposes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand.
exactly. Um, so I did just enough to decide that he's a colonel. That was I don't enjoy. I like research. I don't like researching like what's it called? Oh my gosh, I'd say army things, but
Military
military. But
history.
yeah, yeah, military terms and stuff like that. It's not my cup of tea, but I needed to know enough that I knew that he was in command of people, which is kind of interesting. He's not just a grunt soldier. but he's not like the highest up on the chain either. So trying to make that fit at least closest, somebody might call me out on it, but I think we're close enough in the realm that it works for what he's done in the war and what he's had to do. So no, it's a fictional war that he has run away from. Um, and without going into too many spoilers, there was just some deciding factor at one point in the war where he was like, yeah, I can't go with this anymore. I can't keep doing this. And then that's where our story starts, basically.
Yeah, and that I really enjoyed that because it provided depth to the overall narrative, and then you have narrative layers. So I do have a question here about Richard,
Uh-huh.
and if you knew he was going to be on one side, he's referred to as kind of a conscientious objector to the war and left because of maybe reasons of morality is what I kind of gleaned from it. But at the same time, Thang calls him a deserter. So there's kind of the framing of two lenses on how you could see this individual based on his actions. And like, it's very deep from, already issue 1, we're creating layers in the narrative, not just Richard in the house with Thang, but Richard's background. So I'm wondering about Richard and if these layers were part of the original concept idea or if they came out as you were writing the story.
I think it was a little bit of both. I outlined pretty heavily on issue 1 and a little less so on issue 2, but I think I'm going to have to go back into it for 3 because we're going to have to pull more out and then back into it. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm like, what did I work on in advance? And some of the things like how Fang calls him a deserter, I think that probably just came up when I was doing the scripting. I was like, oh, this feels like a little bit of a burn because Fang's really like sassy and kind of like he wants to do his own torturing of Richard. But I
Poor
did
Richard.
know, yeah, poor Richard. I did know that, it wasn't that he was running away, like he got conscripted and then he was like, oh, hell no. Excuse me. It was very much like he was part of this war up until a certain point.
Yeah, and when like the part where Fang calls him a deserter really stood out to me because of the art, and Richard kind of looks back at Fang with like, you could sense he feels some sort of shame with being called a deserter, and that he must have had some sort of pride in being a soldier, and it must have been a tough decision for him to leave. And that's all just gleaned from like, the word deserter and Richard looking back and seeing his face. So is that a level of depth that you originally had for him, that he has this shame associated with it, or am I just pulling that out on my own?
Well, I think for him to have gotten to the status of being a colonel, sorry, excuse me, he has to have wanted to be there for some time to raise up in the ranks and get to that point. So it's a very, conflicted decision for him. But ultimately one that he felt that he had to make and go through it.
Yeah. And how many issues are you planning on doing? Did I read that it's capped at 4, or do you have
It's going to be around 4 for the first volume.
Okay.
And we're looking at around 3 to 4 volumes, depending on, how well it goes, of course, and all that stuff. So, but that's my goal is around 4.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're off to a great start.
Yeah.
And I might have said it before we started recording, but I don't remember if I said it after we started recording. So congratulations on successfully funding your first Kickstarter for this project. And was this also your first Kickstarter as an individual?
It was, yeah, as an individual, yes. I've had pieces in multiple anthologies, most of which have funded, thankfully.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you what was your foray into comic writing did you start off with anthologies to gain experience, and did you have any other creative endeavors before you got into the indie comic realm?
Sorry. It's going away, but it's still a little bit there. Something just went down the wrong pipe. Yeah, I got into comics through an anthology, which was Cthulhu is Hard to Spell 2. That was my first piece, and that was back in, I can't remember when the campaign was. I know I was working on it in 2019, and it was either the campaign was the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020.
I think I remember.
Yeah.
If it's the same Cthulhu anthology, I think I remember seeing it on Kickstarter when I first started the podcast.
Okay.
Which was
well that there was
earliest or late 2020, but maybe it's a different Cthulhu.
Are you thinking of Cthulhu Invades Oz?
Yes, I am.
That was later. Yeah. That was
Okay.
later. Yeah. Which I actually have a piece in Cthulhu Invades Wonderland. Cthulhu is hard to spell and say, not just spell. And wonder, actually, both Cthulhu is hard to spell. Oh, wait. I can't talk about that release date. All right, so checking that one. So yeah, Cthulhu was hard to spell too. I think it was early 2022 or late 2019. It was right. I'm trying to remember if the pandemic had started or if it was pre-pandemic.
Isn't it funny that we I also do that to remember our timeline is like pre-pandemic or post-pandemic.
Yeah.
It's a very clear line of delineation in all of our lives.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, or it doesn't like it feels like it's post, but it's not like really post just yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean post start of it?
Post start of it, yeah.
Post start of it, yeah. Yeah. Right. Where was I going with that? Okay. Where I started. So that's where I started in comics. And then I think I applied to one or two that I didn't get in. And it was probably a couple more months before I did. But then it just kind of like snowballed from there. And then I'm doing like a ton of anthologies. And I still have a couple where the pieces have been done for months and I'm just waiting for them to be on Kickstarter now. So just kind of sitting on them. I mean, I've been writing on and off since, I guess elementary, because I found some stuff the other day that I couldn't remember at all. But I really think of it as like high school is when I like really started writing a lot. And then I took little breaks on and off. And I was writing short fiction primarily on medium.com for a while. And I'm actually thinking of putting I haven't been very active on there. So I'm thinking of putting my rejected shorts on there now. Why the heck not? I don't feel like spending that, especially the microfiction when it's for like a prompt. I don't know that it's going to fit anybody else's prompt randomly. So why not put it up, get some eyes on it? People can enjoy it. So I thought that could be a little fun way to give it some life.
Yeah. You could also consider doing an anthology of your own, like combining them all.
Very true. Yeah. I don't think I quite have the numbers for that just yet, but
yeah.
I still get pennies from Medium every once in a while. Like, you got 5 cents this month. Yay.
I guess that shows that there's some traffic.
There's still some traffic, despite me doing nothing on there. So
yeah, I'm not familiar with Medium. Is that can you introduce that to me?
I don't know if they've made any changes since I've been active on there, but it's a big blogging and writing platform. It has articles on everything. People write tech articles, personal articles, listicles, whatever. So there's pretty much anything you could want to find is on there. Just like a lot of other sites. There's really no barrier to publishing because you can just self-publish, or you can publish in somebody else's like Medium publication. Like you can have your own publication, and then of course you have to follow the rules for that, as you would anywhere else, whatever that individual's publication is. Usually getting in one of those publications can get you a little bit more eyeballs because they might already have some followers who will get notifications when your story gets posted. Last I was on there, it was free to read 3 articles a month or 3 stories or whatever. 3 posts a month if you're not a subscriber. if somebody gives you a friend link, you could always read for free. So like my newsletter subscribers, whenever I send them there, I just give them my friend link, so um, it doesn't use their reads, and they don't have to worry about signing up. And if they want to sign up, that's great. But you get paid from people who are paying members reading your stuff. I think there might be like I don't know how they're doing it anymore. If it's like by length of time read and how they, because each subscriber is only paying like medium $5 a month. So if that person reads 100 stories, that $5 is getting really thin.
Right.
In terms of distribution.
Yeah. The finance behind those sorts of websites and stuff are interesting. Distribution models are really interesting.
But the nice thing is you don't have to host a website. You don't have to do that. Of course, you don't, as with any platform that's not your own, you don't really like own your audience isn't really the right term. But like with my newsletter, I don't have to worry about Facebook shutting down my profile.
Right.
So there is that risk.
Yeah, a little bit more autonomy.
Yeah.
And security, but then also a little bit maybe more work to manage the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what was the having the experience on Medium and then starting Headless Gnomes, which is your publishing company? What were the steps like, and why was that decision made to do your own company?
It's a couple reasons. So one is just that, from a business perspective, I don't have an LLC right now because it's not really quite worth it. When you're in California, you really have to think about, is it worth it for me to incorporate just yet? At some point, even though the income may not match that level, it might still be worth it just for a peace of mind type of thing. We're not, if you like make candles, you got to really worry about like somebody burning down their home and stuff. So having your business separate from your personal thing, even if it's totally the person's fault, you got to be careful about those things. So having your business and your personal separate is just smart. Comics, maybe not so much a concern, but there are things like copyrights and stuff like that. So just having that separate from yourself can be a safe move. As a lot of publications look more favorably, or like bookstores and stuff like that, when you say that you're a publication, they look more favorably on that than just like your name as an author. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Right, reputation and
yeah, they just even if it's just you, it just, I don't know, it carries more clout for whatever reason. So there was that, and then I don't know. I think it's fun to have a name. I like having a name. I like having a publishing name, So, and it's I'm getting some characters designed. The Headless Gnomes characters are being designed, the mascots right now.
So, oh, cool.
It'll be January, hopefully, that they're going to be released.
Yeah. And on the website for Headless Gnomes, it says that it's kind of a publishing company for comics, stories, poems. Also mentions maybe like animation or film, or basically a whole load of potential creative projects. So I'm wondering, what else is in the pot cooking, or baking, or however you're cooking up your ideas for the future.
I've got the book up, Haunting Haikus, so that's got some poetry there. I'm always working on short stories. Well, not always, but I'm often working on short stories. I actually would love to do like an online like sci-fi fantasy horror publication, but that sounds like a lot of work right now. So that may not be coming for a little bit, but it's something that's kind of on the back burner in my head for, okay, if I have time, this is something I would like to do. And that would be also publishing other people, not just myself, not just my own stories. Bill is probably the one thing on there where I'm like, I don't know if I should have put this on there, because I would love to do it, but the money involved is that's hard to get started. So that could be like a decade from now, who knows? And I do actually have, I've started on some board game ideas. They're just not they're not fleshed out. They take a lot more startup capital than comics do, but well, I think you still have the same thing where a lot of that capital is going to go to printing, but they do overall tend to have higher campaigns.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've
Right.
had two, I think two or three people on
Mhm.
who are board game creators. And yeah, the campaign just seems like it takes a lot more, it's a different animal than
Yeah,
comics.
yeah. And I'm trying to find a way because I had started designing games that were completely separate from the comics. And I'm like, it would be smart to maybe do one on the comic. Then we have a little crossover, people who like the comic and like board games, and people who just want to play the game, don't care about the
Yeah.
comic.
So are you working on that now
It's in the back of my head right now.
in the infancy? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there will still be some standalone ones that aren't related with any other current property I'm working on. Um, but if I can get things that tie together, I think that's really a great way to do things.
Yeah. Was the concept of working on so many projects at once always something that you wanted to do, or was there a turning point in your life or your life as a creator that you
Or
said, okay, I'm gonna go for it? Because it
I,
sems like you ramped
yeah,
up like rather
right.
quickly, and
I have a
I love
problem
these stories.
not doing stuff. So yeah, it's not always a good thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe you could elaborate on something I pulled from your
Sure.
Kickstarter in your description, which was you can usually be found trying to create all of the things. So I think that's a perfect tie into what we
Yeah.
were just talking about. Um, yeah. So how do you manage multiple projects? How do you prioritize one project over another? And what is your workflow like when you have many things going on at once?
Right now, I am mostly working on a couple of comics and then some anthology pieces, some short stories, and then I haven't really started into the other non-writing stuff because I'm like, okay, this is enough for now. I actually originally was trying to get out 4 in 2022. Now it's looking like 3. I could change to 2, but I'm really, really, I'm pushing hard to keep it as 3 Kickstarters. So I basically have 2 overlapping comics right now, which is the Orb Teller and Fangs and Foul. Those are my big focus for 2022, as well as probably a couple anthology projects. I did like 9 this year, and I'm not doing 9 next year. That's just
Too
not going to
much.
happen. Too much, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was great for starting out because I didn't have my own comic that I was working on, so it's a good way to get my name out there. It's a good way to have some extra books at tables because I haven't started tabling yet, but even when I do right now, I only have Fangs and then I have my anthologies. So it's not a lot to have at a table. So it's good to have those anthology books kind of filling that space.
Mm.
Whereas when I grow and I have more comics to fill up that space, I won't need as many other things to fill it. I also really like writing short comics though, so I'll probably always be doing a couple if they feel like they're a good fit. And if they want me, of course. But I'm not going to do as many. It's just, I don't think it's very sustainable. And at this point, it makes more sense to focus on my own my own projects and brands. Um, I am working on how to balance those. uh, you think you know what you're getting into until you don't. And I had a good idea of how the Kickstarter stuff went and how it would run. I got checklists and all this stuff. And I still was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much more that I didn't think about that I need to do. Um, we got through it and now I'm learning backer kit. And that was actually a really high learning curve. I was not expecting that, but it's almost done. So I'm happy that I'm actually waiting until the last week of December to send the survey out just because of like shipping rate changes. But it's otherwise like it's almost done. It's almost complete. Think I rambled away from the question a little bit here.
No, that's okay.
I'm
That's
trying to
perfect.
pre-plan like when things are going to come out so that so that I can slot those other things in. And I do have to think a little bit about like how much time Kickstarter will give me to approve a project. Like I know now, especially they want us to be mostly done or completely done with fulfillment before starting another one. So I have to kind of, play with that in mind a little bit.
Yeah. Are you able to have multiple project pages that you're working on simultaneously, but not yet
That aren't
submitting?
approved. I think so. Yeah. So I could get, if I haven't, if I have the materials ready and I have stuff I can start putting up there, I could get it started. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a limit to that. I think it's just a limit to once you're ready to submit it for approval, then they're going to look and see, well, how is this other fulfillment coming? Somebody actually got an email recently that they had like successfully fulfilled enough projects and stuff that Kickstarter was like, oh, you can do whatever you want whenever you want. You don't have to wait to fulfill.
Oh, that's
So
convenient.
yeah, so apparently there's some level of trust and whatnot with Kickstarter. So, all right, that'd be great. Once I get there, then I only have to worry about my own sanity
Yeah.
insofar
Yeah.
as getting everything fulfilled on time.
Were there any good resources that helped you prepare and or finish off your Kickstarter that you would recommend to people who are interested in doing their own?
Yeah, I'm in comic launch, and that was really invaluable.
And what is that entail?
Comics launch, I don't know what the current deal is, but when I joined, it was like lifetime. I got access to the course. I got access to list launch, which is all about building your mailing list, and basically like, excuse me, a bunch of other programs throughout there. Um, so it's a bunch of training modules, and then also a Facebook group and monthly training calls. And then we all have like a little chat for the month that we can be together and kind of help promote each other's work and whatnot. And it was a great investment. It is an investment, but it was a great investment. And of course, it's a tax write-off. So, so if you're doing this as a business, it's really valuable. And people have joined who've already done Kickstarter campaigns, um, as well as like when I joined, I had not run a Kickstarter campaign. So there were things I already knew, more along the business line, less so on the Kickstarter line. So most of the Kickstarter stuff was all like new stuff for me, or just maybe I might have heard some of it from fellow creators, but I'd never really like experienced it.
Yeah. Anything stand out that surprised you?
Oh, I think. Mm, I'd like it if their page had a little bit better formatting. um, this isn't so much a Kickstarter thing, but next time I had meant to get on top of my social media pre-Kickstarter, but I was writing posts the night before for the next day and whatnot. Sometimes the day of, but if you can pre-schedule it, oh my gosh, it'll save you so much headache.
Yeah.
You can't pre-schedule everything. You can't pre-schedule your lives and stuff like that. But the more you can do, the better, because then it's just one less thing to stress about as you're actually going through the campaign.
Yeah. How much more traction did lives or daily posts or some other daily activity help energize your campaign?
That is something I still need to look at, actually. It's on my to-do to go through and try to
Yeah.
see as much as I can. I don't want to get too like enthralled with it and be like,
Because then it's just a time suck. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I
exactly.
know.
But to have like an overall idea so that for next time I know what to focus on. Facebook ads were a pain in the butt. And I don't even think that everybody recommends them necessarily. I do think I did get some leads from it, but maybe not a lot.
Hmm.
But I do think I got a couple leads from there. Um, I don't know if I know how to read if Kickstarter's reporting just yet. I think I got a couple people from Project We Love. I actually don't think I got very many.
From Projects We Love, the
Yeah.
Kickstarter
Mm-hmm.
kind of promoted page, or
Yeah.
so
I
you
did.
were
I
selected,
definitely
right?
got a couple, but I'm still not sure if I'm actually reading what they're telling me correctly. So I could be wrong. It could have been more. It's the
Yeah.
whole like new language to figure out what these referrer codes all mean, and it's yeah, running a business is just a lot of learning constantly, all the time.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of comic creators who come on. As you know, when you're running a campaign, you're not just writing and or illustrating the comic, but you're
Yeah.
also, trying to get people's eyeballs on what you are creating.
Mhm.
Do you think that uh, participating in anthologies helped you build your audience? And I guess, to what degree have you been able to generate interest in your creative works through participation in anthologies?
I think it did a little, not a lot. I feel like a lot of my sources are coming from a variety of different places all over. Um, a lot of the people I think on anthologies that ended up following my work, I would say are fellow creators. I don't think I got as many people who were maybe just readers. Um, Possibly a couple without, having a whole day to go through all that data, really. Because I feel like,
Right,
I mean, having a social media team would be very beneficial, but very expensive, and I
right,
don't think that I don't, I wouldn't say that none of us are at that level, but probably very few. It's
right.
very costly to have that. Um,
Yeah, and then even if you have a team or somebody to generate posts and do posts
mhm,
for you, you want them to have, because I've thought about this too and conceptualized it, that person, they're not just going to be Joe Schmo off the street who doesn't have any understanding of your project and what you're doing. To be able to post accurately and attract the right audience, they have to be, really in tune with you as a creator and what you're creating. I imagine that would be the challenging part, is finding a person who could, represent your project and your creative work as you would want them to.
yeah, yeah, and it's definitely out there. Excuse me. My day job as a virtual assistant, part of our team does social media marketing, and they have to learn the client's voice. They have to learn how they would talk, what they would say, what they talk about. Um, it's definitely not my forte, but the people who do it, they know what they're doing. So, but yeah, I mean, that happens when you hire anybody. They have to learn kind of your way, and if somebody's good at what they do, they'll be able to. And if they're not, they're just probably not the right fit.
Yeah, yeah. Tone of voice is so specific though,
It is, yeah. That's why I never really got into copywriting, because I was like, it's hard to, for me, I mean, putting myself in the character's shoes is one thing, but putting myself in somebody's shoes and then writing as that person is just, I don't know, it feels different.
Yeah.
Maybe if I thought of it as a fictional exercise, it would it would come together better rather than a live marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned, you've been writing since early age, elementary school, and then definitely a lot more in high school. Did you always envision yourself writing and creating and wanting to do so professionally?
I knew that I wanted to do something creative. It really took me a while. I think there was a time in high school when I thought about writing, but like I knew that typically it's not a very lucrative position. Typically, I don't want to say that there's nobody doing it. There's obviously people doing it. Um, and even if like I'm not talking about looking to be rich or anything like that. Not that that would be not nice, but just to make a good steady income, a good living, it's a little bit more difficult. So I actually got a degree in fashion because I also really like designing clothes. Fashion's also one of those things where you have to work from the bottom up. You have to put together the patterns, sew the clothes, be a grunt, whatever. And I just didn't want to do that. So I ended up actually not using my degree, other than occasionally I'll put together a cosplay for myself. And that's about the extent of me using that. Um, I briefly thought of doing a line of Gothic Lolita like accessories. I never actually got past like making some prototypes. Pretty much is as far as I got with that. Um, Anything retail. I mean, they're still handmade, but the sales margins are so low. Not to say that they're great on comics either. Um, and then I made nail polish for like a year and a half, and I did nothing else. And the margins on that are really low too. It was really fun and interesting. I just didn't want it enough. Was kind of what
Mm.
I came the conclusion I came to. Um, I've always known that I wanted to write. I actually really want to get an MFA in poetry just for the heck of it. Like I don't need one, but I just want one. But I'm like, that's a lot of money to spend just to have it, you know? So I don't know that that's going to ever happen. Granted, I would get a lot of great, experience with it. Not to say that,
Right,
there's
right.
a lot of great teaching, but I've taken poetry classes and workshops. I don't necessarily need an MFA to get published. Actually, I have a book coming out next year. Um, I didn't know. It's just one of those things where I'm like, I really want to do this. So I've always like loved writing. I just didn't, for whatever reason, think of it as a viable option for a long time until I started
Mm.
following people who were doing it as a viable option. I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we could actually. Right before that, I had a YouTube show with an ex. Obviously, that's no longer going for reasons. Um, which and YouTube's a funny beast. You can make money there, but it takes time. It takes time. It takes time, and then you never really quite know if you're going to be one of the ones who really hits it off, or
Mm.
there's lots of people who can quit their job and do YouTube, but it takes time. Any
Right.
sort of content creation takes time. And my goodness, do I hate editing videos. So that kind of, along with the relationship not continuing, I was like, all right, we're good on this. I do enjoy writing. I haven't finished a screenplay. I've started a couple screenplays. I have finished some shorts. I haven't actually made them yet. And I've worked with others. I've worked with others to like make shorts. Um,
Shorts meaning short films,
Short
right?
films, yeah, short
Yeah.
films. Sorry, yeah, it could be short anything, not short shorts. I'm actually really bad at sewing pants, so so I probably wouldn't be making those sorts of shorts. But yeah, short films. Sorry, my water's almost gone. I'm trying to get this thing on.
That's okay. Do you want to go grab more water? We could pause real quick if you want.
Yeah, pause real quick if it's good with you.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right, cool.
There we go. And we are back.
Okay, so we're talking about films and shorts, short shorts.
Yeah. So, what was like, can you tell me more about the point that you decided to go full tilt into writing? Like, was it a climactic buildup to going through all of these various creative iterations of things you wanted to experience and things you found interesting and potential outlets for creativity that could generate some sort of income? Um, and then is writing now it? Are you 100% sold?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely sold. And when I was doing the YouTube show, I was doing a little bit of writing on the side, and I was writing the script for the shows too. Um, put years to it. Like when was this? Probably like 2017 or so. um, and I was just writing a lot of short stories at the time. I was mostly writing on Medium. I didn't really know how or where I was going to publish just yet,
Mm.
and I haven't gotten anything published with a speculative fiction magazine just yet. So that's still a goal. I do think that they're more difficult to get into because you get so many applicants to them, and they
Mm.
can really only usually publish. It depends. If I'm doing like a contest, then they're only taking one to maybe three, whereas an anthology is like 10 to 20, sometimes more stories. And lately I've been doing mostly the contests. I haven't been doing the monthly for the actual like monthly releases or whatever, which they have a little bit more for that. So they're really limited. They get a lot of applicants, like so many applicants, which is why I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to do my own because having to read through that many all the time, like, I don't think I got the time to read through everybody's stuff.
Right, right. You need to
Um,
dedicate a chunk of time for that for sure.
yeah. So I've always known that I wanted to do something creative, and it really just took me a lot of trial and error to kind of get there. And there was a time when I was really frustrated because I didn't know kind of what I wanted to do with my life, and it felt, for me, I was like it came a little later than I would have hoped, maybe. But at the same time, it just kind of, it is what it is, and that's where we are, and that's it's just part of that process.
Yeah. Was that trial and error like during that time that you were trying, experiencing various creative things? This is the first time I've heard of anybody making nail polish, for example. Like it seems very specific, very cool, very vocational that you would have to learn. I mean, quite a bit about pigments and
Right. And to clarify that a little bit, you don't make a couple of people make the base from scratch, or they have a lab that they consign to do the base from scratch, which is more expensive. But most of the indie nail polish makers, they're buying their bases already made. So you got the base already made for you. Sometimes you might mix two to get a better consistency, depending what you want to do. But yeah, you have to know which base is best for your glitters, which base is going to last longer, how that base color might affect the colors. It's a lot of playing around with stuff. I did a lot of research on, you have to have a list of which pigments you can use in the United States because some of them are allowed here, but not in Europe, and some of them are allowed in Europe, but not here. And so um, there was a lot of research with that. I don't remember most of it now, but seeing as I'm not like selling anything, it doesn't really, I don't need to know what's allowed here and what's allowed there. If I want to make myself a bottle,
right,
I'm good.
and that's probably changing on a every year, every other year too. So
Right,
it's probably
right.
hard to keep up. But
Mhm.
it takes a tremendous amount of research and know how to, I think, delve into something like that, or maybe even the making Gothic jewelry.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm very crafty, and whenever I see something, I kind of look at it and go, "Can I do that?" Which is a very big problem for my wallet because it's usually more expensive than me just buying it.
Right, right.
But it's very interesting to me to see how things are made as long as there's not too much math involved or too much science where I might like accidentally blow something up. I was never very good at chemistry. I found it interesting. It didn't quite stick with me very
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Thankfully, the nail polish, you don't really need to know chemistry. Even I've made a perfume. You don't really need to know that much chemistry. You need to know a little bit about how smells go together. Um, there's definitely more to it if you want to get really, really skilled with it, but to make something a little bit simple. And I mean, you can always trial and error too, and it could end up just not smelling good at all. And well, now you know that one didn't work.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like maybe you really enjoy also that discovery phase
Yeah.
of any creative endeavor, like the learning about the know-how to be able to do it. And I get that sense too from what you're doing with Headless Gnomes from the business side, that you're very, astute and learning a lot and employing a lot to empower the business end of your comics.
I just
That's
need like an
cool.
extra year within my year, and then we're good.
I feel the same way a lot
Yeah.
of times. Yeah. So what else do you have planned for Headless Gnomes in the future aside from comic projects that you're going to be producing within it? It seems like a multifaceted multimedia approach to the business? Are there any other layers to that project?
Well, the Headless Gnomes, I want to start working on their individual stories. So kind of just putting out some short stories about them. They'll probably just be on the website. I don't have a blog for it yet, but that's probably where those are going to get updated when I do.
And that, so the Headless Gnomes are going to be kind of mascots for the company itself, and
yeah,
maybe
and
a spin-off story or something like that.
Yeah, they have their own backgrounds, and I'm kind of picturing them right now as not really so much of a novel, so much as like a collection of shorts, so more of an anthology about them and about their characters. They can actually remove their heads, but it's not.
Can they swap and share?
That's interesting. No, they cannot. That would be an interesting layer. It's they take their heads off to be like kind of like spies, so they can separate their bodies from their heads, and they can go and do other things while their heads are like watching whatever they need to do. And they use sign language, which I learned a little bit in high school. So I picked up a book to try to like relearn it because, it's like, well, I'm writing the story and they use sign language. I should probably know a little bit about it, especially since that might, attract people who have to use it. And so, I want to be able to communicate with them at my table. And just in general, it's good to be able to communicate in that way. I can do most of the alphabet, but that would be very, very slow. That would take a while. I can say thank you, and I think that's about all I remember from high school. It's not very much. So I'm going to relearn that, maybe not fluently, but enough to, have some conversations. That's where I was going with that. So that's in the works. The really, really, really want to do the magazine next year, but I don't think it's going to happen. So it's probably going to be like at least 2 years. I've got a couple ideas for novels, but I just have to slot them. I have to find the time and the space and when is the right time to put them out.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the games. It's all just a matter of juggling it right now and figuring out where to put them. When's the best time to release them and really go ahead on that. Because I do think that there's some benefit to, despite me not wanting to focus, I do think there's some benefit to focusing on a limited amount of projects before adding more to the mix.
Yeah. I also I'll start with a project, but then the sub projects within that one main project, the sub projects just kind of become unsurmountable. And if you have multiple projects with a magnitude of sub projects beneath all of them, then it's, you'll drive yourself, at least speaking for myself, I'll drive myself crazy.
Yeah.
How do you, so you have a lot of ideas. How do you generate your ideas? And then how do you capture your ideas?
I probably have maybe three main generative processes. One is it's late at night and, it's idea time. We don't get to sleep because it's idea time. And 99% of the time it's write it down or lose it. Every once in a while, one will stay on into the morning. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I really wanted to sleep. So thank you for not going away. Once or twice I've like dreamed whole things. And I think a lot of people have had this. And then of course, those are always gone. Those dreams where you like dream a novel or something, they're always gone.
Yeah. You got to throw a pen and pad next to your bed and hope that you
wake up
have that 1 second between sleep and being awake that you could semi-consciously scribble something down.
Yeah. So that's one way. Another way will sometimes be just something like I might see something and that'll spark an idea. So both of these ways are very things coming to me. But then there are times when I will sit down and I will look at my, my pen and my paper and be like, all right, what are we doing? What do we need to do? And usually I'll look and I'll see, these are the ideas I'm working on. This is my list of stuff I want to work on. What do I need to do? Do I need to pick one of these to work on? Do I need to come up with a new idea? Does this fit my brand? Because I have a couple of ideas which honestly, they might not fit Headless Gnomes, which doesn't necessarily mean I won't write them. They just might go to another publisher. I'm not sure just yet, but they don't quite, fit the brand. So, um, yeah, there's definitely times I sit down and I force myself to think about ideas and not just have them come to me because, yeah, so many ideas that I have, they just don't always fit into what I'm doing right now.
Mm. And then so what's your creative process after the generation stage?
Oh, right now it's usually just continue to work on whatever I'm working on. um, but if it's something I know I want to work on, I'll give it a little bit more time just to make sure it kind of like sticks. Because often if I just write down a sentence or two, that might not stick quite as well. I might forget something, so I might flesh it out a little bit. Um, and then I have like a calendar of like ideally how I would like stuff to come out and when I would like it to come out. It's probably more accelerated than it's going to happen, but that's the best I can kind of plan that. Um,
Yeah, isn't it
but
hard to plan realistically? Like I do that with myself
oh
too.
my
I'm like,
gosh,
oh
yeah,
yeah, totally gonna crush this. I'm giving
right,
myself enough time. A week should be enough, and then it's like takes a month.
yeah.
It's like
Or you get
I'm
sick, something happens,
yeah, something happens.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, you didn't know that backer kit was going to be so difficult.
yeah. So is
So,
the backer kit that you're referring to is just putting together everything to send out to everyone and managing
yeah,
the
to do the
shipments?
surveys and the pre-order store stuff. It just wasn't quite as intuitive as I thought it was going to be. I think it's going to be really beneficial to have used it. Um, I just didn't know that it was like it's just really unintuitive. But it's like
Is that a
next time
third
I'll know where things
party?
are.
Yeah, that's
It
a
is.
third party
Yeah.
add-on. Yeah, okay. To help you manage the
Yeah.
fulfillment side.
Yeah, because we had, a little bit over 200 backers. And so I'm really glad, even though it's been difficult to set up, I'm really glad that I have that because I feel like fulfillment would be much more difficult without it.
Yeah, right.
So there are extra fees associated with it. Their support has been great. They've been really great at answering my questions in like a pretty quick time frame. I mean, if they answer me right away, that would be ideal for me, but that's not really realistic. So usually like 24, maybe 48 hours if it's like the weekend. So pretty quickly. Um, compared to like some things where you're not going to hear back for 3 days or whatever. So yeah, pretty quickly on their support. Um, it's just a little bit of a learning curve. And then it's one of those things, next time I do it, it's probably going to be much easier. It'll go a little faster. I won't have to
Yeah,
try to
right.
find where everything is. I mean, you know, you tell somebody to open Photoshop and just start doing stuff. It's like, that's not realistic.
Right. No, that's a good analogy because
Yeah, it's not quite that hard, but
no, but it's
yeah,
true. It's like make a circle. And if you've never opened Photoshop before, it's like you're in an
right.
alternate universe, like walking on the ceiling or something. It's like crazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just a bit of a learning curve. And, that's one of the nice things is that a lot of these things that you learn, you don't have to relearn. Sometimes you do when platforms change, or I feel like the one that you have to relearn the most in business is probably marketing because things are always changing in marketing.
Hmm.
I mean, I think you are always going to have where people want to connect with you. And so being personable and talking about who you are and getting people to resonate with you, I think that that's always going to hold true. But the platforms we market on, the algorithms that are working, what's the best Facebook ad right now, that's going to change constantly, unfortunately. I would love to say it's
Yeah.
always easy.
Right. Yeah. Never, it's the easiest time to probably try to get eyeballs on your thing, but figuring out the tools, how to use the
Yeah,
tools to actually do it is a challenge.
yeah,
Because I've seen a lot of really great works that aren't quite as well known as I would expect at this point.
right,
Things
right.
like that, just because the algorithms and the the people are out there, but it's still tremendously hard to find all the right people for specific projects, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned a mailing list. Were there any other tools that kind of jump out as the star tools in your portfolio for attracting the audience that is most resonating with your projects?
I had a Facebook ad that was doing really well, and now it's doing not as well. And I literally had no idea why. No idea why.
Huh.
I just I'm letting it be for right now because I don't have the energy to like really dig into it more. Um, the one that so I can't imagine that there's any indie creator with this type of money. One of my clients for my main job was saying that for Facebook ads because it's a learning platform. So the more you have your ads on there, this is my understanding. Don't take it as the all truth, whatever. There's a word I'm thinking of that is going from my head. Um, it's a learning platform. So the better it does, the more it learns, the longer you run the ads, the more money you feed it, the better your ads will start to do. And she was saying a good budget is like $50 a day. I'm like, no, that's not happening for me. That's just not realistic at all. Um, so yeah, I have an ad going right now for like $2 a day, which is still, I mean, in a month,
Adds up quickly.
Yeah, it adds up.
Yeah.
So.
And the other thing, because I've done some ads, not for the podcast, but other projects I've been on Facebook, and you could put the money, but it's a lot of time to manage and tweak and fine tune. And I mean, they have less manual options, but then you're not taking advantage of all the tools,
right.
In the manual option that you want to use to get leverage and get the most eyeballs on the ad. So one of the things in my experience with it is I was almost more overwhelmed by managing the ad campaign and the many layers of it than, the $2 a day. Then I felt, the $2 was getting spent, but because I was overwhelmed by the management, was I actually getting the full $2 worth and the most bang for my buck?
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I just had a little bump in it the other day. So I'm like, oh, maybe it figured something out. I don't know. Maybe it now knows who it needs to show it to. Hopefully it'll ramp back up again because I was getting people to my list that way. And that's my main list building right now. I've reached out to a lot of my personal friends, and there's only so much reaching out directly to personal friends you can do before like, all right, I've exhausted everybody. We're good. But I have a free, issue 0 is free on the website. So that's where I'm running an ad to right now. I should probably be posting that some more in the groups too, but I just haven't been doing that lately. On some Facebook groups. I have been considering doing my own Facebook group because I understand that gets a little bit more traction. The time to manage that though is maybe not quite there. So.
Yeah. That's the other challenge for all indie creators I find is, there's only so much that one person can do with 6 to 8 hours of sleep a day. That takes a big chunk out of it. And then if you're working full time. Yeah. So let's go back if you don't mind to kind of what we started the conversation on, which is your comic that was recently successfully kickstarted, Fangs and Foul Play. And I'd love to hear more about the inspirations for it. You mentioned like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and a couple of other things that are adjacent to it or, in the same genre of. So are those or other media's direct influences, and how do you pull from those?
I love that like Gothic architecture. So the most recent Sabrina is probably a little bit closer to that, style. And I love, Addams Family. It's a little bit It's been a while since I've watched it actually. But I feel like it infuses some humor into that. I mean, I guess it's I don't know if I would call Adam's Family scary, but it's got the horror element of the scare the ghosts
Yeah,
and
it's
the
a little
hand and
dark
yeah,
and
it's dark. It's got those elements. It's not really like a horror movie or by any means. It's got those dark elements to it. So I like that juxtaposition of
mm,
those two things. I don't do a lot of like dark stuff. I do some. I did a couple recently, so it's not always true.
yeah. Well, I mean, even in the comic, there's the juxtaposition of, like you said, the comedic elements, but at the same time, Richard is feeding Fang other humans from his community at the
Yeah.
end of the day. And um, yeah, I guess so. I get the sense that Richard gets to pick who he feeds to Fang, and there might be some morality guiding why he would pick one character to feed to Fang rather than another.
Yeah. He's definitely trying anyways, to go for the people who are maybe not he's trying to go for the people that are more morally corrupt
Right.
as much as he can.
Yeah, yeah. And then it presents that interesting moral dilemma where, as a reader, you're seeing the characters that you would hope to get fed to the cat, getting fed to the cat. And
Right.
then you feel good,
Oh,
but then you realize that you shouldn't feel so good about somebody dying.
yeah. It's
And
okay. They're fictional, so
they're fiction. And yeah, I kind of saw this synergy with there's this new show on Amazon that is I haven't watched it. I want to say it's called I don't remember what it's called. But it looks at films and the impact of films on people
mm-hmm.
and society. And in the trailer, which is all I've watched so far, it kind of says that film allows us to go into an alternate reality. You're in this dark space in a theater. Maybe you haven't been in a theater for a while because of COVID, but I assume part of this show coming out is to encourage people back into theaters, actually. But anyway, conspiracy theories aside, you're in this alternate reality looking at a screen fully immersed. The sound is big, the images are large, and a lot of movies we are most enchanted by are the ones that pose these moral dilemmas and look at the evil side of humanity and kind of the gray area.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading, issue 0 and issue 1 of Fangs and Foul Play, I kind of felt that through the juxtaposition of this very specific and quirky and unique genre. Yeah, so I guess to frame that as a question, is all of that for you intentional, or does it just come out in the writing?
I think it's mostly intentional. I like reading some black and white stuff because it's just not black and white, in terms of like morality.
Mm,
But sometimes it's just fun, you know. You have the like over stylized villain who you're like, this is the bad guy, you know. But it gets old, it gets cheesy. There's really only so much you can do with that, It's just not very realistic for the most part, I'm sure there's some people who are like that, but they're very few and far between. Um, and so I really do like to explore those gray areas, and well, what would you do in this situation? I mean, I don't actually personally enjoy the discussion of if you went back in time, would you kill Hitler when he was a baby? It's more fun to write about than it is for me to actually have like an actual conversation where
okay.
I'm trying to debate that.
Yeah.
When I don't know.
Yeah, and who knows what butterfly effect,
Right.
happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe a
Well, yeah.
nuclear bomb gets used and decimates the Earth for some odd reason that is unforeseen to us.
So I'm watching. Oh, I can't remember. It's on Hulu. It's about time travelers and somebody steals a time machine and is going back in time to change history. So they send after him a historian, a coder who there's definitely something else going on, but we don't know what yet. And a military guy. And they change one thing, and like a couple people live that wouldn't have lived. Well, they kind of like half saved the situation. The good guys half saved it, but it still went wrong. And then, yeah, massive, massive butterfly effect, you know. I mean, not so massive, but massive at least in this frame for the characters where, you know, people are missing in their life, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, who knows what would happen? You know, I think I'd
Yeah.
be, I guess the better question would be if you didn't have to, if you took it out of that time traveler, you said right now, this person's going to grow up to be a Hitler and everybody knows it. We don't know what the future is. What would you do? You know,
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the interesting way to pose it. Because then you don't have the, I
you don't have
guess,
to worry about the time travel. Yeah.
foresight. You don't,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know what the future is that you're
Mm-hmm.
preventing. So interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
definitely something I like playing with that. And
like those hypotheticals.
yeah, and just playing with that gray area that, you know, Richard's very conflicted in all of this, you know, because there are some parts where it almost seems like he's kind of like happy to be getting rid of these people, but he's like not, and he, you know, he's a little stuck. You know, I mean, he doesn't, of course, want to be forced to do anything. That's very much, you know, nobody wants to be forced.
Yeah. Yeah. I also get a little bit of a Clue vibe from the cast of
Mm.
characters, how they're
Hmm.
presented.
I can kind of see that. Yeah,
Yeah. But not intentional. Obviously, is
yeah, I hadn't
is
thought about that
the,
one. Yeah,
yeah. So is Sabrina something that's specifically resonant with you or that you grew up with or
I haven't watched the old show in a while, but I did really enjoy it, and I did watch. I probably watched most of it. I don't know that I don't think I've watched it sequentially because, of
and they
course, it
had an
was.
Archie comic too, right?
Yeah, yeah, they did. Um, you know, if you grew up with it on TV, of course, that was pre Netflix. So unless you rewatched it, you probably didn't. You probably missed a couple episodes. Um, and then I really loved the new show. Um, I don't know, the ending, so without giving spoilers, but overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the vibes of it. Um,
Yeah, that was think I saw the first, definitely the first and maybe the second or half the second season.
yeah,
Are there three seasons or
I kind of want to say four, but I don't remember for sure.
oh, okay. Yeah, so I probably watched about half of it and it's like pretty dark
It's
and
pretty
less
dark.
comedic
Yeah,
than all the previous
right.
iterations.
So I feel like the people in Bloodville are more like the new Sabrina, but without the extreme gore because we wanted to keep it PG-13. um, and then, you know, the cats maybe more like the comedic version. Give it that levity, you know.
Yeah. I also liked when Fang is trying to think of a new name for Richard. It kind of
Yeah,
flips the script of animal ownership. And I have a
right.
dog here, and sometimes when I'm in a position that I have to say like that's my dog, but I love my dog so much, and it is kind of weird to proclaim ownership over a living thing.
Yeah.
But so it was interesting. It jogged kind of that internal debate for me when Fang is giving Richard a name, like naming animals. Is that it? Like if an animal named us, that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Or if we had
Maybe they
overlords
do.
and aliens came down and they ascribed names to us, like would we?
Right. I
Yeah.
wonder if our, you know, maybe they do give us little names in their heads. Little, you know. It's probably more like smells. Like this person smells. They're the smell.
mm.
Anyway, I'm thinking about how my dog smells me.
And if a smell is as, because they do communicate a lot via smells. So
Yeah.
as if a smell is a form of communication, then maybe there is a signature scent that
Mhm.
is representative of your name.
Well, and sometimes they will like, if I come out of the office and then they kind of only half see me, they'll bark because they're like, "Who are you?" And then it takes them a minute, like, "Oh, that's okay. Never mind. We're good." I wonder what goes on in that second before they put it together. And I mean, I'm not sure how far they can smell.
Yeah. And they're definitely, my dog at more than one occasion saw a bearded man pretty far away. And she really likes my dad, and he's a bearded man.
Oh,
And like I could see her see the guy that was not my dad from a
yeah.
distance and get like super excited.
Oh,
And then, yeah. And then realize it's not him and mellow out. So I guess that, yeah, they are pretty visual animals too, I guess, even though their sight isn't perfect.
yeah. I'm not sure how much color they can make out. I
I
don't
think
think
it's
it's,
kind of like shades of brown, if
yeah, something like
yeah,
that.
something like that.
So when I dye my hair, it probably doesn't bother them. They're good.
Have you always dyed your hair, or do you go through different colors?
I've had it this way for like, I don't know, 6+ years or so now. So it's been
Nice.
a
So this,
while. I've changed it up.
yeah,
Yeah. Now during the pandemic, I did have it about half out before before I was able to go get it dyed again. So that was interesting. But
yeah.
I didn't do it myself.
I realized scrolling through so the podcast has been going on for just over a year now. It
Mhm.
feels like kind of longer. This is, I think, going to be episode 41 or two. Um, but yeah, I scrolled through all of the images from episode 1 to episode 40, and I was like, wow, my presentation of self and image has changed a lot. Like last year this time I had like a pretty full beard, short hair. Yeah, so that's why I was curious about your hair, if you had gone through as many transformations as I have during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Well, it grows out slow, so I don't like to cut it very often. It feels slow to me anyways. I don't know. It's probably normal, you know. But when you're used to long hair and then you chop it, it feels like it takes forever
To grow back.
to come back. Yeah. So I did that once, like, well, I've done it twice. Once because a guy got gum in my hair.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was not happy. This was like
uh,
middle school or something. And then once by choice. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. And then like right here for me, I hate it so much with passion. Like I can't put it up, but then like I don't like taking the time to style it. So forget it. I'm like, I'm good.
yeah, I didn't intend on growing my hair, but then it started getting long, and I was like, all right, I'll grow it out.
Yeah.
And I never also didn't intend on having a man bun, but now I see the utility in
Mm.
putting a ponytail when my hair is all in my face. So
They definitely, yeah. Otherwise, you're doing this today.
yeah, or tucking it behind my ear, and it stays
Yeah.
there for like half a second before it's just in my eyeballs again.
Mm.
So how was the pandemic for you as a creator, and how did it impact your you as a person, you in your daily life, and then you as it pertains to your creativity?
I wish I could say I wrote a novel. I didn't. Mostly because I was actually ramping up my day job during that time. I hadn't been working full time, so I ramped up to working full time. So that took away. I was very grateful to not really lose much work. I had a couple of little transitions in there, but overall, I was able to actually grow my hours. There was like one period where I was not sure what was happening with some clients. They were staying, they were going, how many hours I was going to have, that sort of stuff, but it ended up working out. So in that way, I didn't get a ton of time. I am like a big extrovert, and I'm actually struggling now getting back to going out because I'm so busy. So I'm trying to rebalance, find that balance again of going out and still keeping up the creative work. So in that way, I was really able to focus because I didn't have the FOMO that I sometimes get when I'm like, oh, I want to go out, but I can't because I'm too busy. So now that's coming back and I got to figure that out. But during the pandemic, because I couldn't really go out much, I mean, we could go out a little bit depending on, at some point, some restaurants started opening up, stuff like that. But the bars weren't open, the clubs weren't open, even getting together with friends was pretty limited still.
Mm.
So,
Where are
everything.
you located again, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, we're in California, Southern California.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's interesting where we are, no masks are required, but we're near Palm Springs, and Palm Springs is masks are required, vaccines are required. And I almost forgot when I went there one time that I needed my card, and luckily I had a picture of it. I was like, oh, that would suck to have driven and then had to go right back home.
Yeah. Here's a public service announcement to everyone. Take a picture of your vaccine
Yeah,
card.
yeah, because you just unless you know where you're going, what the rules are, and it's just different everywhere, which is a little challenging, honestly.
Right.
Um, I'm not going to get into, if one's better than the other or anything like that, but it would be a little bit nice if it was just consistent, just so it didn't have to like
Yeah.
wonder what the rules are when you get there. And then if you forgot a mask, oh goodness. So I usually keep two in my purse, and then I'm like, okay, what are we doing? And I actually have found that if I feel like I have a cold now, I'm just like, if I'm not sure if I have a cold, like I might have a cold, then I'm like, well, I'm just going to wear my mask in the store. So, I'm kind of hopeful that some people might adopt that mentality, which is, you see in a lot of the Asian countries and in Japan has had a mask wearing, um, that's pretty common. People
Yeah,
think they're
forever.
cold or they have allergies,
Yeah.
you know. So, could just help keeping us all from getting the flu.
Right.
So it is nice to actually have that on hand just in case I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure. Um, because I wasn't already selling pre-pandemic, it did not hurt me in that way, which was really nice for me. I know some people it really, I mean, obviously we couldn't go to conventions, so people who relied on conventions had to figure out something else.
Yeah. Are you an
Really
avid
interesting though.
convention goer?
Um, I like conventions. They're very expensive because I never don't buy stuff. I always buy something. So yeah,
Yeah, you have to pay entry and then pay for what you actually
right. Yeah,
you
and
have to
there's
pay entry to get to what you want and then pay for what you want.
yeah, and there was one near me. They're not doing that one anymore. This was pre-pandemic too. So I pretty much have to get a hotel anywhere I'm
Mm,
going, and then pay for food that I don't really want most of the time.
right.
Pay like 5 times the price for it. So I mean, I'll probably be going to more if and when I start tabling at them. Um, but yeah, I never really went to conventions more than once a year, sometimes less, as an attendee, just because I mean, on average, I'd say $300 to $500.
Yeah, it's a
It's
crazy
fun, but I can't do
expense.
that monthly. Yeah. At least if
Yeah.
I'm doing it as a business, I can write it off and hope
Y-
that some of it comes back in sale.
Right. Are
Of course,
you
I won't be able
going
to go to all the panels anymore.
Yeah. Are you gonna plan to table? It sounds like you're kind of gearing up to potentially
Yeah, that was part of getting the Headless Gnomes designed was that I need to get a banner.
uh
I need something to go on that banner.
so do you have a first stop on your future tour?
I wanted to do WonderCon and I didn't realize that they basically moved everyone from 2020 over. So I've been given instructions on how to go sign up as a professional, which I need to go do. And then if I can get on a wait list, I'll get on the wait list. And if something opens up, it might be a possibility because that's not, it's, I still have to get a hotel, but it's driving distance. It's not driving distance where I could drive every day.
Right.
So I would have to get a hotel, but I don't have to fly.
Right.
So, and that really that helps a lot because when you have to fly, and you have to ship everything. Which is,
Yeah. Yeah, I just went on a cross country trip for the first time driving a van. I was able to sleep in some nights at campsites and stuff.
mm-hmm.
So I was actually thinking that that might be an option for the future if I
Yeah.
go to, because I'm working collaboratively on a comic project now too, and I would like to help the guys who are putting it together, table or help promote it. I think I have a vested interest in it at this
Yeah.
point. And yeah, I was thinking, like you said, hotels are expensive, and a lot of times it makes the idea of participating just not feasible.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, well, maybe I could cut the cost by, camping, going to a campsite, paying 20 bucks and sleeping in the van pretty comfortably rather than 200 or 300 bucks on a hotel that's close, right at the convention center.
Yeah. The nice thing about that though is if you're a sleeper inner like me, you can just wake up and then go downstairs. You're there.
Yeah, it's so convenient.
Yeah, but it's not cheap.
Yeah.
To one day be invited and have everything paid for.
Right.
I think that's some time away though.
That's the dream. Well, not if you continue outputting as much as you're, putting out there and continuously getting successful Kickstarters like the one you just had funded.
Yeah.
So what is I also, digging into the website for
Mhm.
Headless Gnomes, saw the Orb Teller and Haunting Haikus. So maybe we could start with the Orb Teller, and you could let us know what that project's about. And I actually went through the website, and the 0 issue short issue is free there to get a sneak
Yeah.
peek. What's that story about, and then what's the future of that project?
So that was actually supposed to be in an anthology, and then that anthology never happened. And I was like, well, let's go ahead and do the story. I think we're slightly off deadline for that one, so we're gonna see. I'm hoping to put it out in February. February, those R's. But I do not yet have an exact date for the launch of the first issue on that one. And I'm still working on my pitch for it. But it is
And that'll
about
be a Kickstarter.
It'll be a Kickstarter. Yeah. It's about a fortune teller who can tell the future, who she has a curse, which we're going to learn more about. A curse that she needs to get rid of, and every time she uses every time she uses the crystal ball to change somebody's future, curse spreads and grows, and it's basically killing her. And she's not really the best person, honestly. She kind of runs with a little bit of shady crowd. She's very, I'm not saying money is bad, because money can be used for very good things. I don't like that. I don't like that adage that money is bad. It's really more how it affects how it can affect people and how you use it. Capitalism and all that. But she's very money motivated in a negative way. She's doing it as a greedy way. She's not doing it necessarily as an altruistic way, or even just to be secure or something, because my goodness, financial security is a really nice thing to have. So that kind of drives some of her decisions and how this curse came to be, which I won't delve into too much because we don't really talk about it in issue 1 that much. And then she has a talking, well, it's not talking, it's a spider who can talk to her by drawing symbols and whatnot. And there's I'm working on a language system for it, which is a lot. It probably won't ever be a fully fleshed out system, but just enough to get the books through and have it make sense. I'm sure if it gets a big enough audience, somebody's going to ask and want it done, or they're going to, fill it in how Klingon became really huge. And so So, and it's set in the future, where technology is really big and magic is also in the world, but people believe in technology a little bit more than they do in magic.
Oh,
Which I don't
interesting.
think we see very much in the first issue because we're centered around the magic users, but we'll see more of that as we go on.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that sounds fun. What was the inception of that idea? And
So pretty much the anthology, it was supposed to be an anthology about power and just different, whatever different ways that people have power or use power. And specifically, I believe it was specifically women. Um, and I really like, magic and fortune tellers and stuff like that. Um, so that's where that short story kind of came from initially, and then from there, I just wanted to explore this character more, and um, I really love the art style that the artist has going. I used to read manga a lot, so it has a little bit more of that style to it. Then
right.
Fangs has more of an American-ish look, and Orb Killer has a little bit more of a anime manga feel to it.
Yeah.
Not it will be a comic format.
Cool. Any reason why you used the past tense for having been into manga?
Oh, I just haven't been reading much
Just
anything.
just time or
Time and money, yeah. It's
yeah.
like, it just adds up so much. I used to work at a bookstore, get that 30% discount. It's much easier to get a manga series than it is now.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I haven't picked up a new series in a while because I feel like if I pick up the first issue, the first book, I might not end up buying the second one, or I might, but then it's just an investment. So I just haven't been doing it.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to or you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Maybe you shouldn't judge a comic or a manga by the first issue. I feel like you need to
Right.
invest in one and two at least to get a sense of where things are going. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then, they'll be like 10 or 15 or sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, sometimes it's only like 5, and that's a good amount there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm into I haven't followed it in recent years, but I was pretty into Hajime no Ippo, which is a boxing
Mhm.
manga and anime, and I think it's still the longest running manga series in Japan. Presumably, I'm assuming it started before One Piece because One Piece is also really
Right.
crazy long.
Somebody was mentioning a different one the other day, but I can't remember which one it was. I don't think it was that one. I'm sure there's another one that's going really long. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I'll have to check my stats to see if it still has that claim to fame.
I don't even know if Bleach is done. I gave up at some point. Okay. I just, you know, goes on forever.
Yeah, sometimes. So for you as a storyteller, this is something that's always interesting for me is to ask if, you know, determining the finish of the story as you're starting is something that uh part of your almost personal style because you mentioned that you have end insight for Fangs and Foul play. And is that something that's consistent for you as a storyteller to know where you're going and to have a definitive end insight as opposed to ongoing?
Initially, I don't, but at some point, I'm like, okay, we need to figure this out because otherwise, I think you can really just meander with not really much direction.
Mm,
Um, and I think that the readers are going to catch on to that, get kind of bored.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I get the same sense too. I think
Yeah.
that's the analogy or the description I always give is Japanese dramas and animes and mangas oftentimes are, you know, one season or two seasons or three seasons, and then they have a
Mhm.
definitive end, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas American shows, they see that a show's popular and it's at its
Right.
peak in the third or fourth season. They're like, we got to ride this horse into the ground and make as much money off of it. And a lot of times, for me as a viewer, in my own opinion, I'll add that caveat. This show and the narrative and the story and the characters in the story all suffer for that decision because they didn't end it on
Yeah.
nearish to the peak of its popularity, but rather waited till the popularity waned to finally end it.
I'm always like sad when a good show I like ends, but I'd much rather it end in some way that like makes sense than just not end at all because they kept it going and then all of a sudden like, well, we're just gonna not finish this.
Yeah, that's the other option, right? That's the worst option.
Yeah.
So shameful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get pretty bummed out when a good show ends too, but I try to frame it as I'm sad because it was so good, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw Warehouse 13, it just ended like
No, what's
so
that?
abruptly. It was like this small town. It's been so long since I've seen it. People, because I was like, I don't want to rewatch it and then be sad when it doesn't end again, you know. The small town of people who and there's well, it's kind of like a small town setting. Um, and there's this warehouse, and the warehouse is full of all these like magical and various items and just artifacts and stuff. And so, of course, them like acquiring them makes all sorts of weird stuff happen. Um, or there might be a mishap in the warehouse with some one of them. It did a crossover with Eureka at one point, which was a kind of a comedy sci-fi show, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen it. I'm not sure how else to describe it, but it was a lot of fun. The characters were great. Wacky adventures, you know. Not like wacky wacky, but like it kind of like drama with a little wackiness type of
I
a
like a
thing.
little
Yeah,
wacky
just
with my
ended. Yeah,
drama. Yeah.
right. There's that one I can't think of that everybody loved. It was like 2 seasons, and I think it was Netflix. I can't remember. It was so long ago. That's very vague.
But so Warehouse 13, you
Hmm.
were saying that it kind of ended flat or it had a bad ending.
I think it like ended like halfway through a season or something. It just they just were like,
Like
nope,
they just
nope, no more.
canceled it.
Yeah, just canceled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
Oh,
bummer.
yeah. There, the other one was an F. Nope, I'm not gonna remember it. There was another one that was really good, and they rushed the last 2 seasons to a point where, or at least like the last season, to a point where you're like, what is going on? Why are we here? And I feel like they had the story arc, they had the plan, but then they had to really compact it because
Mm.
they were like, this is the last season, so we're gonna get all this story in, and it just didn't quite make sense. I mean, you could kind of make it out, but a lot of people really didn't like it because of that. I'll make it out.
Yeah, I felt that way about Game of Thrones. Like
Mm.
the
Didn't get
pacing.
past season 3,
Oh,
mostly because
yeah.
I didn't have HBO anymore. So
That's a good reason.
yeah.
Another expense, another
Mhm.
expensive streaming service.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how many seasons there
Mhm.
are or were, but I felt the last 2 seasons, I think the director changed, 1 or 2 seasons.
Mm.
The director changed and the pace increased dramatically, which is maybe good in some respects, but it was a little bit abrupt if you're watching for whatever, however many seasons there are
Yeah.
in a row. It's such a dramatic change of pace that it almost feels like it loses some kind of continuity because like events just happen so much more rapidly in the
Mm-hmm.
last season.
I'm just trying to kind of piece together how they work with
Yeah,
one
yeah,
another.
yeah. And it's one of those things too. It was such a cash cow. I was almost pleasantly surprised that they took the opportunity to condense it and end it. but at the same time, I was surprised that they didn't stretch it out, and yeah, maybe
But
they felt some fatigue on the part of the fan base. I don't know.
they're still waiting for the book, so
Right, yeah, that's true too. Forgot about that. Well, are coming up on 2 hours. I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything else that you want to discuss, riff on? It is what's your random, so anything goes in
oh
terms of
no,
topics.
I got lots of random, but at some point we got to close. So
Yeah. Well, I do have 5 closing questions that
okay,
is kind of a break off segment. If you want to get started with those,
sure,
we could end that way.
okay,
Cool. So yeah, this is called 5 quick questions, and the whole purpose of it is to have a show within the show that I could split off and have a little bit of a bite-sized treat for people who aren't ready to invest. Maybe their
yeah.
drive to work is a lot shorter than everybody else's drive to work. So yeah, it's 5 quick questions, and just I will ask them.
What's a drive to work? No.
Oh yeah, what happened? Who does that anymore?
Yeah.
That's so 2019.
I haven't done it for like 12 years.
Oh wow.
I've been working from home for a long time. And now it's easier for me to explain that to people because everyone's like, oh, yeah, we get it. I'm like, okay, that's good.
Yeah, a
Like,
lot of what you do, you don't have to be sitting in an office to do. Surprise,
yeah,
surprise.
yeah.
Shocker.
All right. Questions.
All right. So the first question is, do you have a personal mantra or words of wisdom that you use to get yourself going creatively?
I don't know if I do. Um, I think if there's something I don't think consciously, that's more like a subconscious, thing.
Mm.
Something creative to keep myself going creatively. That's a hard one.
If not, that's okay too.
All right, we can come back to it if I.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be like a
Yeah.
mantra or just words of wisdom, something that
Oh, words of wisdom. Okay, we're gonna go with that. Yeah. So one thing that I read was like when you my editor cracks up every single time I do this. I'll write in the script and then I'll just be like in big bold letters and sometimes I'll highlight and yell and be like something goes here. So don't be afraid to like skip stuff and come back to it because you can always come back to it if you're really, really stuck. Because sometimes you have to move forward rather than staying on that spot that you're stuck on.
right,
Unless it's
right.
like really pivotal, like you really don't know what's going to come after it, like it's going to really affect that, just come back to it. But make sure you know where it is so you can come back to it and you don't leave that there when you publish it.
Right. Yeah. And so by highlighting it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
those are words of wisdom. Definitely.
It really, really works though, because sometimes I'm like, if I don't have a lot of time to write, I just need to write something. I might get stuck on the spot. I'm like, I don't have time to be stuck right now. So something goes here,
I'm
or
gonna
whatever you want to put there.
to jog my memory of that wisdom, I'm going to make my own mantra, which is when I feel that I lost inertia, I'm just going to say, don't get stuck. Don't
Yeah.
get stuck. And that will remind me of your advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second one is indispensable tool in your, or what is an indispensable tool in your creator's toolbox?
I honestly probably use too many. I need to consolidate because I have like Google Drive, Dropbox, my own computer. I'm like, where are my files? Where am I keeping them? I don't know. I need to decide. Um, Google Docs is probably because I can share it so easily. I do use Superscript, which is really, really good for comic formatting, and it's not expensive. The only downside is it's not cloud-based. So what I end up doing is I copy it into Google Docs and then I send it to my editor so that he could see it. So Google Docs, really, really, really beneficial. Having a mailing list, really beneficial. I personally really don't like Mailchimp, but I just don't like the interface and the way some things are set up. But lots of people use it. It's really popular. It's free up until a certain point. So, if you're like stuck on which one to use, that could be a good one to use. I had actually started out. I had used much more complicated CRMs than Mailchimp. So when I was looking at Mailchimp, I'm like, what the heck? Like this can't do all the stuff I wanted to do.
Right.
So it was weird. I couldn't do that. So I personally use MailerLite, which I think they do have a free up until something too. I can't remember.
What is that one called? Sorry.
MailerLite.
MailerLite.
Yeah. Um, Very good. They just don't quite have as much advanced functionality as I would like either, but I can't get that without paying like way
Right.
much. So I'm good. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have the list size to need to be paying hundreds of dollars a month.
Not yet.
No, yeah, maybe one day, and maybe like when I get to that point, it'll be comparable in price anyways, because the list size will have grown. But yeah, we're not there just yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, using those tools, you will soon be. And I think, yeah, I use Google tools quite a bit myself,
Yeah.
and they're just like really terribly convenient. It's
Right.
like it's hard
Yeah.
to not use them because they're so good. The third question is eyes on the prize. What is that prize for you?
Being able to write full time. Or not, I mean, it's not even going to be writing because there's the business part, there's all that stuff. But yeah, having that business be my primary.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And well on your way
Thank
to getting there with your first successful Kickstarter. So questions 4 and 5, and I have them like because I started to ask every guest. I have the questions posted over here. That's
Like,
why I'm
yeah.
like looking off to the side. The last 2 questions are where we get to time travel a little bit.
Okay.
So buckle your seatbelt and don't worry, we're not going to debate whether you would kill Hitler or not. So what advice would you give to your past self at any point in time in your past?
Um, Both to just believe that the process, like that it'll come, and then occasionally to slow down. I don't know if that's from my past or my present, or both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to put the cart before the horse. Yeah, that's the right phrase.
Yeah. Sometimes I want to put the horse before the cart, but put another cart in front of the horse. Kind of, it gets kind of messy.
Yeah.
So I could relate. Yeah, slow down is I've heard that on this segment before.
Yeah. It's hard
By
when you have all the
Jeff
ideas.
Johnson, and
Yeah. And you really want to get into them and to do them, but yeah.
one
Even when you're
thing
doing
at a
it full
time.
time, I just don't think, anybody who has a lot of ideas, we have more ideas than we can probably ever get to, realistically.
Right. And yet so many of them are, worthy of some time. So it's hard to prioritize. Yeah. Okay. Question 5 is now instead of going back in time, we'll go to the future a little bit and ask yourself a question. So what is a question that you have for a future you? Or what question would you ask a future you?
Question would I have? I'm not sure. How do people usually answer this?
It's purposefully ambiguous. So like I want it to strike people however it strikes them.
Okay.
But yeah, you could ask yourself tomorrow. You could ask yourself a question when you're 80. Typically, people answer it about, as it relates to their creativity. But like I said, I do pose it in an ambiguous way on purpose.
I don't know if this is a question, but I'd just be really curious, like what, after so many years, what does that career look like? What, I'm assuming it's successful. What's the output like? What's been a good flow for that output? Not just always pushing forward, because pushing forward is not a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like the balance, like
Yeah.
were you
Yeah.
able to slow down, find the balance, like
Yeah.
strike the perfect yeah, workflow? Yeah.
Yeah. How did I do that? Do I do it? How do I do it?
Awesome. Well,
Big
that
picture, figure
is,
it out.
yeah, that is and or was five quick questions. So yeah, Leanne, thank you so much for joining me today, and please let listeners know where they can find all of your goodies.
Okay. So my website is headlessgnomes.com.
And that is
And
GNOMES,
yeah,
for people who are terrible spellers like myself.
and on social media, you can find me at headless gnomes. I don't yet have my pre-order, depending on when this is being viewed. I don't yet have the pre-order store up, and it will probably only be up for a couple weeks, but it'll be at fangsandfoulplay.com, because that'll redirect wherever I need to redirect it. So very convenient.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, congratulations again on your first
Thank
successful Kickstarter. I'm excited to see all of your future success. So best of luck, and until next time, enjoy your random. Hello, my fellow randoms. Welcome to the post-show debriefing. I'm going to keep it short and sweet and basically just start saying thank you for joining me. Thank you for participating and listening and learning about indie creatives, their process, the trials, tribulations, and ultimate successes of these great individual creators. I'm sure you are probably one too. So go out there and create for the new year. 2022 is the year of the creative, and I can't wait to see what you have in store for us. So be sure to share. And until the next episode, and until next time, enjoy the random. Thanks.